Hello and welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today, we're joined by Brandon Gaille. Brandon is the host of a very popular podcast in this space called The Blogging Millionaire. And he also runs not one, not two, but at least three very, very successful websites. We're talking websites that each get around 2 million page views or visitors per month. So, yeah, you heard me correctly. That's about 6 million page views across the three or so websites that he shares with us. Brandon joins us and really does a deep dive on so many great topics. Some of the more common topics that we talk about in website building. But he has some unique angles that he takes on them and just some really good, solid tips that he shares. We talk about how to produce great content. He goes into depth on some different keyword research strategies that he uses, centering around low competition keywords, but that he's used to grow his website into the many millions of monthly visitors. He talks about how to create a content plan and how important having a content plan is for your content to be successful. Uh, we do spend a good amount of time talking about backlinks, and he shares the differences in active backlink building versus passive backlink building. I think some of my favorite things that came out of the interview were his tips to passively build backlinks. He's getting over 1,000 passive backlinks per month across his websites, and he shares some of the strategies that he uses to get those backlinks organically, if you will. We talk about updating content, why it's so vital for your site as it ages, and he shares some quick, down and dirty tips on how to do it so you're not spending a ton of time on it each and every article. At the end of the day, it's just so much value you get out of it. Brandon's also founded rankiq.com, where he basically disseminates a lot of these tips into software that is focused on bloggers. So focused just on bloggers and helps them with their keyword research and their content plans. It has some really interesting things that other keyword research tools don't do. And it uses AI to come up with a content plan for those keywords that you can then either deploy to a writer or use to write yourself. It's pretty cool software. I was able to check it out before our interview. And so definitely recommend you head over to rankiq.com if you want to kind of see what Brandon is spending a lot of his time on nowadays. So all in all, hope you enjoy a great interview with Brandon and get a lot out of it. All right, welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman, and today we're joined by Brandon Gaille. Brandon, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. I mean, it's a real treat to have you. Just a little background so people kind of understand where you're coming from. You run the Blogging Millionaire podcast, which is a very successful and longstanding podcast about blogging. You also are the founder of Rank IQ, which we'll get into talking about, but is a really powerful SEO software tool for ranking better. Did I miss anything at the outset?
Nope, you got it.
Got it. Okay, good. Well, we've got a nice journey in front of us today. I mean, we're going to be talking about your background. We'll talk a little bit about some of your successful website building as well. We'll get into some tips that you have to share with people. We'll talk about how you ended up with Rank IQ and starting that. Why don't you catch us up, bring us up to speed on some of your website building journeys and kind of your background, if you will.
Well, I was always into websites, and in my 20s, I had some successful multi-million-dollar companies that were based upon building a lot of websites and getting people there and giving them information in exchange for their email. And that went very well for many years. And then as I was in my late 20s, I started to have some health problems, and it continued to get worse. And essentially, I lost my ability to think and use my mind, a little mental handicap there. And within about a year, I had lost everything that I had made in that short period of time. And from that point on, probably for another 6 or 7 years, I wasn't able to do anything because the doctors couldn't figure out what was going on. It wasn't until that 7, 8 years later that a doctor identified a condition called dysautonomia. That was the underlying root cause. And essentially the dysautonomia was keeping me from being able to sleep. And after not sleeping for 3 years, that's when my mental capability started to fade. But once I got into the right treatment and and started sleeping. I have to sleep 12 hours a day instead of like a normal person does 6 to 8 because my sleep's disrupted even with medication. But after a year or two of that treatment, I was able to be myself with my mind again. And I ended up starting a small marketing services business, since that's what I was doing before with the websites, getting them to rank on Google. And I started doing that for clients. And it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. I was just trying to get something started. After about a year and a half, I was pretty miserable of doing it just because I was having to talk to all the customers and I wasn't really able to scale the business. And one of my employees came up to me and asked me to take a look at her blog, and I reviewed it. And at the end of that night, I realized that I need to start a blog, and that was my little side hustle, my niche on the side. And I decided to spend 6 months researching all the top blogs in just out there. At the time, I was looking at the Alexa top 20,000,
Mm.
and specifically, I started looking at blogs that weren't big brands. And and as I saw these blogs that weren't big brands and their content was really bad, and the one thing they were doing consistently, they were writing posts on keywords that were very obscure that didn't have a lot of competition. So I had that as the foundation of launching my blog. And in 2013, I launched my blog, and in about 18 months after that, I broke 1 million monthly visitors.
Wow, that is a fast ascent in terms of, and that's 1 million monthly visitors. That's per month. You
Correct.
said that, yeah. Wow, that is really fast. What a journey too. Boy, you've been through the ringer and back.
Yeah, it was a lot of downs for a long period of time. I don't think everyone that knew me at some point when I was successful, because I had success right after college, and people saw me as this serial entrepreneur that anything I did pretty much turned to gold. And but then they saw my health fade and my ability to think and have conversations. And after 3 or 4 years, I there wasn't one person that I hadn't known as a friend or a business contact that was even keeping in touch with me. I was just there by myself with my wife to be. I remember being in the hospital because I went in for a heart cath, and because they were showing the dysautonomia and not sleeping was causing basically all my organs to fail over time. And my heart was having these failure problems, and they thought I was going to have open heart surgery after doing a heart cath. Went in there, I didn't. The heart was fine, but they kept me in the hospital, and that day they had a couple of people come in and do some neurological tests after the heart cath. And that night I went up. The nurse told me to go ahead and get up and take a shower. When I went up to take a shower, I felt something funny in my leg because the heart cath goes through your femoral artery in your leg. And I looked down, and all of a sudden there was this big lump about the size of my fist. And I started to lose consciousness, and I was completely naked. And I started going back to the bed. And fortunately, my fiance was there, and I fell on the bed, and she called out, and people started yelling code blue, and they flipped me over. And since they couldn't cut me open and try to seal it back up, all they could do was the nurses and doctors, they had about 8 of them in there for about 20 minutes. They were just taking turns, putting their entire body weight pressure on that area, trying to get it to clot. And I mean, that was one of those moments where the doctor was looking me right in the eye and kept on saying, stay with me, stay with me. And I could see my fiance leaning up against the wall. I remember her just looking distraught. But eventually they were able to get it clotted. And I remember the doctor saying something, trying to be funny, I guess, because it's a tense situation. He said, let's turn this from an R to PG and throw something over him, because they didn't because my femoral artery is right there in my upper thigh. So I'm sitting there in front of all these female nurses and doctors and just completely naked and essentially dying. But they clotted me, and things got better. And and I focused on my family, even my family didn't think I was going to have much success. They just figured I'd be struggling mentally. I think that's just natural when you have a family member who has a physical or mental handicap that's getting worse. They don't expect them to return to the way they were,
Mm.
but by God's grace, I was able to find a path back to first mental and then physical health.
I think it's really emblematic too that you were able to have such a quick success with your website after having such a long road to just getting back on your feet again. Do you think there's anything that you're able to pull from all of your experiences with your health and even your small business and some of the frustrations there that you're able to channel then towards the website you had, the success that you got out of the gate pretty quickly?
Financial stability was the big thing, because I wanted to, because my I was still worried that my health would get bad again, and then my family would be left with financial situations that they couldn't handle. And the business, the for marketing services, I was always starting from zero every month, and I had a churn of clients, so I'd reached the max point. But if something happened to me, all those clients go away because they relied on talking to me for consulting and executing the marketing campaigns. And that's why I focused in on blogging, because that was something that if I built the content and it's getting traffic from Google, that's a residual income. And that, as you build up your traffic, it stays there and you're just building on something else. So after 3 months, I was getting 100,000 monthly visitors, and those are 100,000 monthly visitors on the pages and posts that I had stayed there. And as I made
Right.
more posts, it continued to build. And that allowed me over time to have income that would come in. And had a, even if I died in a car wreck, that blog is going to be there, and my wife can manage it, continue to add blog posts to it. And that income's always going to be there. So that was the big thing that I learned from all of that. I guess it had an impact on me because I knew that in my 20s, I built a company that relied largely on me. And when my health went away, just within a matter of year, everything went to zero. And that was the big thing that I learned.
So as you're building this website, you talked a bit about, I believe, basically a focus on really low competition keywords. What was your approach? Were you putting out a lot of content, and how is it? What do you think underpinned what allowed it to rank so fast?
Extensive keyword research. So I became just the expert in that area from constantly spending, not because a lot of people, they don't even do keyword research. They just write upon topics that they like about, or they see other bloggers writing about. And others that do it, they'll they'll dabble in it for an hour here, an hour there. But I was spending up to 20, 30 hours a week those first 6, 7 months just doing keyword research, because you have to dig. Finding keyword research, it's like digging for gold. You start at the top, you have an idea that there's something down there, and then you dig and you dig and you dig and you go through this just to find one nugget. But when you find one nugget, that can turn into 100 or 200 posts. So there was someone I was helping out blogging back then, that they had a couple of posts on inventors, and it was like Albert Einstein's inventions, and or different popular people that had inventions. And when you did the keyword research, you already knew that those were getting traffic and they were ranking for them. And if you dove deep into all the keywords that had inventors or inventions on them, that opened up 300 to 400 blog posts that they
Mm.
could do. And so when you find that gold, it's you find a piece, but it could be like a big gold ore there that you can uncover. So lots of work to find the initial gold, but when you do, you can expand. And of course, it's easier to write. If you're just writing about 300 posts on different inventors, you're able to use a lot of styles and same intro conclusion formulas, and it makes it easy to knock it out. And then Google likes it more because you build topic authority, because they see that you're consistently writing some of the best content on this topic. So it just kind of builds upon itself. But keyword research, extensive, and then coming up with processes and algorithms. Once I started getting things to rank and saying, okay, these type of keywords are performing well, and then applying those algorithms to future keyword research that I did.
It's interesting. I hear a lot of people talk about finding low competition keywords, but maybe we should change that to low competition keyword, right? They'll go find a low competition keyword and they'll write about it. And then they'll move on and find another low competition keyword and then write about it. But it almost seems like your approach was about finding low competition topics that you could then expand on over and over again, because you talked about how about writing, maybe 300 articles on something. Do you think you found low competition topics, and then that's part of how you're able to really get this traffic surge so quickly? Or was it the fact that maybe you were building topical authority that allowed you to rank for some bigger topics? I'm just curious, because there's an interesting dichotomy there.
It's a little bit of both. Yes, I found certain keywords that had lots of variations, and it's no different. You just have to understand that your niche that you're in, whatever your blog is in. For example, food bloggers, 98% of their traffic comes from recipe posts. So you're going to dig deep on different types of recipes, and you could end up having 100 posts on different dessert recipes, and you go deep and you have the same post styles, so it's easier to knock those out. And then at the same time, Google gives you that authority.
So that was back, I think I heard you say about 2013. How long did you have that website for, and where's that website at now?
I still have the website. It's brandongaille.com, just my name. It's marketing and other related topics to small business. And it is close to 2 million sessions a month. And then I ended up expanding with 2 other blogs over the last 6 years. One's a Christian blog, another is a jobs related blog, and each of those are also over 2 million monthly sessions. So overall, my traffic that I get from my blogs is over 6 million monthly sessions. And with most bloggers, especially pro bloggers, you're going to reach a point where your traffic peaks out and you're going to start plateauing, and you find all the gold that you possibly can, and you're not going to grow as much. And so what happens is you want to be able to branch out into another niche. And on top of that, it diversifies your income so that if there's any type of impact from a Google ranking algorithm or something else that comes up, you have a good diversification of your income.
You say 6 million monthly visitors as though you're just telling me what you had for breakfast. I mean, that is a staggering amount of people that are coming to your websites every single month and visiting. Congratulations.
Thanks. It takes a lot of work. It's not something that's easy to do, but in regards to all types of small businesses that are available for you to start, I don't think there's anything close to what it is to have a blog, because there's hardly any expenses related to it. So it's almost all pure profit. Once you write something and it's a good piece of content, it's going to stay up in the rankings, sometimes forever. And if someone outranks you, it's just a matter of adding a little bit more content to get your ranking back. So it maintains itself. You could go on a vacation for 3 months and have all your posts scheduled that you did 3 months ago and not do anything for your blog, and see it grow and maintain itself. So although it takes a lot of effort, especially in the beginning, to get the traffic coming in, it's the ROI that you get for time invested from any other type of small business. Nothing compares to blogging.
So let's transition into talking maybe a little bit more about the details about how you build your sites, because it sounds like you don't just have one, you have 2, 3 sites that are getting, we'll call it a lot of traffic. I don't want to use dramatic words like insane, but it's kind of how I'm feeling. The scope of what you're doing is, a little bit hard for me to wrap my mind around. What's, maybe help me understand what the process looks like to scale out a site like that. And I guess what I'm getting at is help us get perspective on the steps that go into scaling out a website that big so we can maybe start to assign to ourselves where we're at in that process individually.
Well, as I mentioned before, it starts with keyword research. So you're going to do your keyword research and identify all the keywords that you're going to be writing about. Sometimes for the next year, I will plan out everything in one big batch, and that's just using batching to save your time. And so instead of if you're going to spend 80 hours for the entire year in keyword research, instead of doing it 5 hours a week over a period of months, you're better off doing 40 hours week one, 40 hours week two. You dive into it. You're going to find things. You're not going to have to start over with your thought process. And in about 80 hours, you can easily come up with 52 to 150 keyword phrases that can be turned into specific blog posts that are then added to your blog post planner. So at that point, you've got your plan, you've got your keywords that you know that you're you're going to be able to rank for. Because if you don't do the keyword research part, then it's a coin flip whether you're going to get traffic. And writing your post, it takes time and it's not easy to do. And you don't want to be writing and spending 6 hours on a post that's never going to have a chance to rank because you didn't put in step one for the keyword research. So step two, you've got your post planner, everything's laid out. Now it's time to start writing your posts. The best way to do it is to try to save time is to use some type of AI SEO software that when you type in the keyword that's in your planner, that's going to show all the topics and words that Google wants you to cover in order to compete for a first page ranking. So you put in SEO tips or things to do in Houston, Texas, then that AI report is going to give you the top 100 words, which are essentially going to show you everything that's going to be in your article. So for things to do in Houston, Texas, it will literally list out all the things to do in Houston, Texas that the posts in the top 30 rankings on Google are listing. That way you can quickly make your outline in a matter of 10 to 20 minutes, as opposed to if you did it normally, the old way would be going through each of the top 30 posts on Google one by one, reading through it, and then writing down or typing in all the different topics that all these other posts covered that you want to cover. Because at the end of the day, you need to be able to create the most comprehensive piece of content for that topic. If you can't do that, then you should pass on the keyword. And the AI SEO reports, like my software, Rank IQ, allows you to type in that keyword, get the information. Essentially, the AI does the research for you, tells you everything you need to write about. You create the outline. And then once you have the outline, then it's just a matter of going through and writing out your post. And sometimes these posts for recipe posts, they can be as small as 800 to 1100 words, which is going to be your target word count. For things that are more competitive, like SEO tips, it might be as much as 4,000 to 6,000 words. Every keyword that you're trying to rank for, you have to treat by itself. You can't be like, all right, some SEO guy told me that you need to write 2,000 words on every post to be able to rank. Every word is going to be treated independently. For one post, you might only need to write 1,200 words. For another post, might need to write 5,000. It all depends upon what's there. And if you can't write 5,000, then skip that keyword and focus and find keywords where it's easier for you to knock it out. Because that's one of the things that comes up a lot in my mastermind group is people are just like, well, I ran a report of this keyword and I'm going to have to write 5,000 words. I don't have time for 5,000 words. Can I write 2,000 words? And I tell them, well, you're better off not doing it. Either go and write the most comprehensive post out there, or find something that's a lower word count.
So I took some notes here. Do you mind if I ask you maybe some deep dive type of questions for some of the things you just asked about or you just talked about? Sorry. Talk about keyword research and how important it is. It's clearly, you brought it up many times now. What are some of the big mistakes that people make in keyword research? Maybe some of the shortcuts or areas of opportunity they miss out on.
Yeah, the biggest mistake by far is they focus in on what's called search volume. So all the basic keyword tools except rank IQ and Ahrefs just show you search volume in the front end. And search volume, all that means is how many times for a specific keyword someone searches. So if it's a search volume is 100, that means they searched it 100 times. It has no impact on how much traffic you're getting. That number is meant to be used only for people that are buying Google Ads. It's not meant for someone trying to rank organically through SEO. So always look for either use Ahrefs or Rank IQ, and Ahrefs uses what's called traffic potential, and Rank IQ has estimated yearly visitors. And these metrics show you what you can expect to get if you rank on the first page of Google, because you're not going to rank for one word. And you have all these different variations, LSI words, things that are similar to the word that you're trying to rank for. And sometimes it's anywhere from 300 to 1,000 words. And Ahrefs and Rank IQ looks at that and says, okay, the URLs ranking on the first page of Google for this keyword, these are the traffic. This is the traffic that they're getting. And then you're able to see that traffic and make a good decision and say, okay, this is worth doing because it will get me this much traffic, and this traffic falls in the niche that I'm in or is closely related to my product. But most bloggers, they just even most small business people, they're just not experts. And almost all the tools out there that are SEO are designed for CMOs and SEO experts. They're not designed for a small business owner that doesn't know much about SEO or a blogger that wants to rank their blog post. And it's overwhelming, the information, and the topical information isn't the right information, and you end up making the wrong choice on your keywords because you're basing it on the wrong information.
Yeah, and even if the volume data was even somewhat accurate, each article is going to rank for a collection of different sets of keywords, right? And obviously every article doesn't just rank for one keyword. And so yeah, you kind of underscore a really important topic. So I think maybe the elephant in the room is link building or links. I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking about your success by targeting these types of keywords, by finding good keyword opportunities, low competition, not focusing on some of the metrics that don't have an influence. How big of a role have links played in the growth of your websites? I mean, are backlinks important to it?
Backlinks, backlinks are important. So the core three that a blog or website needs to have in order to rank well and get lots of organic Google traffic is keyword research, content, and backlinks. Now, we already talked about content and keyword research. Now, you can have what's called a low domain authority site. Domain authority is essentially a score giving based upon how good your backlink profile is, how many backlinks you have. A zero domain authority means you're a brand new website, you don't have any backlinks. A 100 domain authority would be something like CNN, Fox News, ESPN, where they just have a ridiculous amount of high quality backlinks. Ideally, you want to be in the crossing 30 domain authority, and you can get there with anywhere from 3 to 10 high quality links. It's not going to be a link from some low level blog. You're really going to want a link from newspapers, news sources, big brand blogs, industry specific blogs. And by having those backlinks, it allows you to rank for more keywords and rank higher. So if you've got a blog and you build extensive backlinks over the next year, and right now you're getting 10,000 monthly visitors, even if you didn't add any more content and you added a bunch of backlinks over that year of time, you can go from 10,000 monthly visitors to 80,000 monthly visitors because you're building the value of your authority in Google's eyes and pushes all your posts out.
Now, are you actively building backlinks, or is it something where you're trying to produce content that's enticing enough to get backlinks? Where does an active backlink strategy kind of play into your websites at this point?
That's a great question. So there's two types of backlink strategies. One is passive, where the links are coming to you, and the other is active. So passive, some of the strategies that I use, number one, just as I mentioned before, targeting low competition keywords where you can rank number one. Just by ranking number one, you're going to get a lot of backlinks. There was a study by Ahrefs that said the number one ranking on average gets 24 high quality passive backlinks every year. So if you're going after low competition keywords and you're ranking number one, what happens is bloggers and reporters, they're just like us. When they need to link to something or find a stat or find out information, they just do a Google search and they're on deadlines. They're not going to go 20 down, but if you're ranking number one, they click on it, they find something, and then they link back to you. So that's one passive strategy. The other is writing lots of posts on statistics. So if you have a pet blog, you find out all the different like pet ownership statistics, pet dog biting statistics. You find out all the type of statistics related to your industry, and you write really comprehensive posts listing a lot of stats. And you're wanting to rank high. So when these reporters are writing an article on someone getting bit by a dog, and they go to Google and type in dog biting statistics, your statistics post shows up, and that's going to drive passive backlinks. The third area would be original research post. This is where you come up with your own research study, your own statistics that you came up with, and you publish that. And because it's your own research, that drives a lot of people linking back to it because it's something new. And most people don't do the original research because they don't feel like they have a big enough audience. One of the growth hacks that I use, even though I have a big audience, is if I want to do a research study, I will identify Facebook groups within that industry that have 2,000 or more Facebook group members. And then will come up with the questions and ask the questions to the Facebook group so I can quickly do a comprehensive research study and then publish a post on that. So that's passive. Active is where you're actively going out and doing it. You want to do both at the same time. Active is very important when you're starting your blog or if you don't have that many backlinks to your blog. Some of the easiest ways are to do podcast interviews. Just like right now, we're doing a podcast interview. Almost every podcast is going to link back to your website in the show notes. And a lot of the podcasts are going to have high domain authority sites. So I think your site is as a high domain authority. I think it's 60, 70, 80, something like that. It's really high. And that is a very valuable backlink. That's like a major industry website or a local newspaper. So those add up, and it's real easy to do. You can just, whatever niche you're in, you go into Google Top Chart or Apple Podcasts Top Charts and go into that industry, and it'll list you out the top 300 podcast, and you just go down it one at a time and reaching out to them, and you're going to get a certain amount of people that run those podcasts to reach out to you. Do a simple 40-minute to 1 hour video, and there you go. There's a backlink. Then I think that's probably the easiest. The most popular one used for bloggers would be using a site called Help a Reporter Out. It's where you have all the reporters and bloggers. They go there and they ask a question when they need content for their article or they need a quote. And then the sources, which would be myself or someone else trying to get the backlink, they respond to that, and then they get quoted and they get a link back to their website. Most important thing with Hero, you just got to be responding to these first, because a lot of times, just like the reporters that are going to click on the first thing in Google, if you're the first person to respond to their query on Haro, chances are you're going to get picked and get that link. So doing podcast interviews and working Haro for that first year and spending about 30% of all of your time on that, because most people just, they don't want to do the link building and they'd rather just write post. And the same thing with keyword research. People just want to write content and they don't want to do the dirty work with keyword research or with link building. But that first year, you need to have 30% of your time on keyword research, 30% of your time on link building, and then 40% of your time on creating content.
Whew, that's a good overview right there. Passive. I love how you break it down, passive and active. And some of the things you shared about passive link building are, because you talk about it, it's like people don't like to link build. It's a lot of work, and the success rate is so low. It can be a little demoralizing, right? Especially over time to keep getting up and going after it. So I love what you shared about some of the passive link building strategies. I wrote down your statistics idea. I'm going to have to go look into that myself as soon as we get off this interview. I love that. And then the active link building approach. Do you think that, I mean, when it comes to building backlinks, whether it's in the active or the passive role, you talked about 30% of your time. Can you expand on that a little bit more? Like, is that something that you kind of try to bucket your time into? And I'm curious how you keep up with that number. Like that could be a really good way for people to kind of framework how much time they're spending on link building.
I think with no matter what business you're in, once you have a set process in place, you should keep track of your time hour by hour, minute by minute, over a 2-week period of time. And then that will give you an idea where you're spending your time. Even if it's not a blog, I mean, there's just so much time wasted, or you're doing something that can be outsourced to someone else. So always start with spending 2 weeks logging everything that you spend time on. Now, as I mentioned before, that 30% number on link building, that's when you're just getting started out that first year. And once you have that foundation there, then you don't have to worry about doing as much active link building anymore. And then you go to passive, and that just becomes part of your content strategy, because at that point you're creating the statistics post, the original research post, and then also you're getting all those links by ranking for all the low competition keywords. So it shifts after that first year, and that 30% that was on active link building now goes to content building. But you have to do that first year, or you're just not going to rank for much at all.
Right. Yeah. If you don't have that solid base, then you can't transition into the second phase.
So I've written about statistic posts on every statistic imaginable related to marketing our business. And those posts, along with the low competition posts that get number one, I get over 1,000 high quality backlinks every single month without doing any active backlink building. And I started from my website was a brand new website. It started from zero, and now it's in the mid to high 70s. And the links, and it continues to grow because of all the passive strategies.
Right.
With the statistics posts in particular drive the most backlinks passively for me.
Really quickly, what role do graphics play in something like that? Are you adding infographics? Are you making it something that's really pretty, or is it literally just the fact that someone needs a statistic to quote that gets you that backlink?
That's a great question. The majority of the backlinks do come from people just grabbing the quote textually. You want your intro to be short, 2 to 3 sentences, and go straight into statistics, because that's what they want to see. You don't want to bury the statistics in paragraphs. You want them either numbered or bulleted out, because once again, these reporters and bloggers, they want the easy button. And if they click on, even if you're ranking number one and they click on your post and it's just a bunch of paragraphs,
they're out.
They're out. So textual based statistics will get you the most. Now, when you're doing original research or with statistics, you can take it to the next level and get some more backlinks by people linking to specific charts. So what you want is a 16 by 9 picture, and you want to make sure that you can see whatever statistic that you're showing in a graph, or if you're just writing it out, that it's visible and mobile. A lot of times people will create some great statistics infographic, and they just look at it on their computer and it looks great. But the majority of the people are seeing this on mobile. So you want to then that's why the 16:9 works, and you want to make sure your text is nice and big. The best images that get backlinks are going to be graphic based,
Right.
and Canva has a great graph maker to where you can make a graph just like Fox News, CNN, in a matter of minutes. Because that's another thing that bloggers and small business owners are like, oh, I don't know how to do this, or they'll try to build it themselves without using a template. But if you type in Canva graph maker, that'll give you the basics. And once you get the template down, which might take 10, 15 minutes, you can reuse that template over and over and just change the numbers and change it from a pie to a bar. But that's a great question. The statistics that get the most links are textual based, but you can take it to the next level and get more out of that article, or in your original research, publishing 16:9 images that highlight specific stats using graphs.
I had a friend talk about they have several websites, and one of their websites is more established. They have, their articles, they put a lot of time into making sure that there's a custom, somewhat custom branded theme that goes along with the way the website looks. And they have graphics that are custom made for the articles. And they have another website that has the same level of content quality, but they haven't gotten around to doing anything other than a standard generate press, website build. And, they haven't really added anything custom except for an image or two to each of these posts. The success rate they have on Haro is significantly higher with their website that has a nice branded look and feel to it compared to their website that's just kind of a stock out of the gate website. So I was just curious, I just shared that story because I was curious to hear you talk about it. And it sounds like they grab they grab the text, but the imagery, the custom graphics, and the way that it all ties together is important as well.
Yeah, two separate things there. One is when you're ranking on the first page of Google for statistics, and a reporter finds it and they grab that stat and use it. The other, you mentioned Haro, which is different. Haro, that's why it's important that it's not necessarily the post itself, because when someone is going to decide to choose you as a source, they're not looking at your post, they're looking at your homepage. And it does make a very big difference if your homepage looks like you're a $500 million website. I mean, it doesn't take much with themes today and Canva to make your homepage look solid. And if it doesn't, they're not going to use you, because that's what they're basing it on. It's perception. And it's unfair, because you could have just thrown up a website and be a really great designer yesterday and not be a great expert, but they're going to judge you based upon what that says. And the most important thing is going to be above the fold for you to mention where you've been seen at. So if you've been seen or been published in some other magazine, you put that up there, because as soon as they see that, that's all that checks the box. They go, okay, this person's been published on CNN or some other industry source, and that's it.
Writing that one down too. So let's talk about, you've got a website that's obviously been around for quite a while. And at some point, everybody runs into the question of content refreshing, of updating old content. How important is that? Do you spend time updating old content? Any tips to share about that process? I've got to imagine with a site like yours, the size it is, you got a lot of content that's aging or that has been up there for a while. So you're probably a really good person to ask about this.
Yes, content updating is actually more important than publishing new posts. While you have to do both, it's a lot easier to update a piece of content that you're already ranking for, to go from number 11 to number 3. And just so everyone understands the difference in traffic from number 11 and in the top 3, only less than 1% of all Google searchers click on something after page 1.
Mm.
The top 3 results get 74% of all the clicks. So you can go from getting next to no traffic to getting almost all of the traffic just by updating your post. Now, the key here is focusing your time updating posts that are already ranking and getting some type of traffic. If your post is not getting any traffic at all and nowhere near the first page, you're not going to get any ROI for the time that you're investing there. And when you do update a post, the best practice is to add content to the end. So if you've got 25 best places to see, 25 best places to go in Houston, Texas, and you got pushed down the rankings because someone else came up with 35 ways, and people tend to click on the highest number, and you recognize that and like, okay, I just need to add 50 more places to see in Houston, Texas, instead of adding them near the top or in the middle. By adding them to the end, it essentially keeps your content the same as it is currently.
Mm.
And because what can happen is people can change content at the beginning or in the middle part of the post, and all of a sudden what was keeping people on your post long, called dwell time, which Google looks at, is no longer there, and it hurts it. So the last thing you want to do is take a site that's getting, or a page that's getting traffic, and change it to where it's getting less traffic. So the safe move is always try to add sections or content towards the end, and only spend time updating content that already gets traffic on Google. Simple way to do this is go into Google Analytics and rank all your pages by highest traffic, and then find some sort of threshold where you're saying, okay, at this point, these are only getting 20 visitors per month or 100 visitors a month. And I'm not going to update content after that if they don't get at least 20 or 100 visitors a month from Google. That way, your time as is invested, and it's just a post that's getting 600 visitors per month. You're ranking number 7. You move up to number 3, you could easily be getting 2,500 visitors a month per that. So I spent probably 6 months a couple of years ago updating hundreds of my posts, and not only did the traffic increase from increased rankings, but the amount of ad income increased because I added more content. And so if you're adding more content, people are reading it, more ads are showing up. So instantly, when I published the new version of the content, I would increase the ad income on that page sometimes by 50 to 100%. So it's a double positive whenever you're updating. And that's why you want to make sure, if you have posts that are already ranking well that you haven't touched in many years, you want to focus on those first, because those are going to be your biggest wins. And before writing a post on something new that you might have to wait 3 to 6 months before it will rank, and you don't know exactly how much traffic you're going to get, it's not as guaranteed. You've got guaranteed resources that are making money and getting traffic. Take care of those first before moving on to publishing a bunch of new posts.
So let's say I've got a website with 500 articles or something, just for a nice round number. How do you recommend this playing out? Like, do you wait till an article maybe is a certain age and then you go back and look at it to evaluate it for updating it? Do you maybe once every 6 months you just go through everything that's getting some traffic and you try to add updates to all of them? What's a good framework for someone to start to operate by so that it doesn't just blow them, blow past them and they forget about it?
Well, just like you have a blog planner for publishing new posts, you should have a planner for updating past posts, because you're going to have some that can be evergreen and stay that way. And the only time you're updating those is when you lose rankings because someone else is writing better, more comprehensive post on that topic. And then you have the ones that aren't evergreen, that might be like SEO tips, because SEO changes every year. You want to update that every year. In addition to that, as for these posts, as you're updating them, you're able to, at the end of your post title, if you put in brackets the current year, that's going to increase your click-through rate. Uh, that's been proven that just having anything in brackets increases your click-through rate on headlines by 20 to 30%. But if you have the current year, people are going to click on that, because when they're looking at SEO tips and they scan the headlines, they're going to want the most current information. And when they see 2022 on one and the others don't have that, that's going to draw the click. You get more clicks, you go up in the ranking. So two paths here. One is for evergreen content that you see are losing traffic or losing rankings, and the other is non-evergreen content that you need to update once a year. And ideally, you want to update the once a year content November to January, so that you can change from 2021 to 2022 and take advantage of that right away.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great tips. Great tips. Okay, so let me kind of bring us back here and recap everything. So we've got BrandonGaille.com, and I want to spell it just for people listening on the podcast, GAILLE.com. And thank you for sharing that. People can go kind of take a look at some of the topics or the concepts that you've shared with us. You've got two other websites collectively getting 6 million page views a month. So as if you didn't have enough going on already, you founded Rank IQ as well. Talk about Rank IQ and what problem you were trying to solve in the industry with that.
Just real quickly, BrandonGaille.com, you're not going to get any of the tips that I'm covering right here. I'm focused on low competition, small business related keywords, things that I can rank for. But as for all my SEO tips, you're going to get that from my podcast, which is The Blogging Millionaire. So I am on a weekly basis doing new growth hacks and going deep dive. So I just did a series on my 6 big growth hacks for link building. So going into the specifics on how to book your podcast interviews quickly, and I did get podcast interviews from high domain authority sites. Same thing for Hera and 4 others. Now, as for Rank IQ, that came up because I started a blogging course about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And as I was getting the students, and I had a Facebook group and interact with them, and I try to teach them how to do keyword research in particular, and then writing content. But keyword research was this main stumbling block. And I went updated the videos over and over, got it down to just simplifying it in 40 minutes over 10 short videos. So it wasn't like overwhelming them, but still there were 50% of them of bloggers that were getting good traffic that could not grasp keyword research. It was just like, it's too much for me. I can't figure it out. And that was the reason why I came up with Rank IQ, and try to make something that bloggers can easily figure out keyword research. And so what Rank IQ does is I start by doing the keyword research on all these different niches. And I've been doing that for over a year now with Rank IQ. So instead of going to, what you have to do if you go to another keyword tool, you're searching the database of 20 billion keywords. You type in recipes, you get 8 million keyword phrases with recipes in it. And it's up to you to drill down and do all the mathematical equations they have what's called the SERP button, and it shows you the top SERPs with all the different statistics for backlinks, traffic, domain authority. And it's you have to be an MIT major to figure this stuff out. Yeah. But with Rank IQ, we identify all the low competition, high traffic keywords for every niche. And we've already done, I think at this point, 360 different niches. So when you go in there and you've got a food blog, there are about 35 different sub niches for food. And you just choose one of those niches, and then it shows you a list of anywhere from 500 to 5,000 low competition keywords that pretty much any blog can rank for on the first page. And it just has 3 stats. The first stat is competition, 0 being the least competition. And we don't include anything over 30 because, as I said, we want any blogger to be able to go in there, pick a keyword, and get results. And then the next column is visitors, estimated visitors per year. And that goes back to what I was talking about, search volume, the confusion there. This just tells you what you can expect to get every year if you're able to rank on the first page for that. And then the third volume is time to rank. That's another one. Bloggers get frustrated sometimes, and because it takes so long to see results, because sometimes it takes 6 to 7 months till you can rank for certain areas. And we rank it ultra fast, average, so that if a blogger starting out, they can focus on low competition that rank fast so that they can start seeing results and building some momentum. But that's one side of it. And then the other side is, once you find your keyword, there's a button next to each word, and it says run report. You click run report, the AI takes over, gives you that list of the 100 topics that in order of most important that you need to cover. And then it also does a title analysis. So it gives you a list of 15 keywords to use in your title, and then you can quickly create a title with the highest click-through rate on Google. And then once you get your outline and you can write your post in our content grader, and it tells you what grade you need it rates it from an F to an A++, tells you the target word count that you need. And as you write on these different topics, they're checked off and your grade automatically increases. So it's kind of an all-in-one tool, whereas most of the keyword research tools, it's just keyword research. They don't have the AI content optimization. And of course, the keyword research, even if you're an expert keyword person, it's still going to take you 100+ hours for you to find keywords. So the keywords are there. You choose one that you want to write about. You click run the report. Your information's there to create your outline, create your title. And then when you're done writing your post, you drop it into the content grader. And then you can fine tune it, add some more words if you're not at your word count, or cover some more topics to increase your content grade. So it makes the process go anywhere from cuts it down by 50% usually. And that allows the average blogger to write twice as many blog posts. And if you write twice as many blog posts, you're going to get twice as much traffic and twice as much money.
I watched the video that you have on, I think it's on the homepage there of Rank IQ. And I think my two favorite features that I saw were, you mentioned it, the time to rank, because I've never seen that quantified before, but that's such a massive importance. Some of these articles that I personally have written have taken years to rank. And if I had known that that article was going to take years to rank, I probably wouldn't have prioritized it over articles that I think you label them as like ultra fast or fast and these different things. So that's really helpful. I also liked, you've been using the things to do in Houston example here in the podcast, and you use that in your video. And I loved how the AI went through and actually ordered and talked about which things were mentioned the most by other websites and gave you basically a content outline. Obviously works really well for like a listicle style post, but I thought that was really a cool feature that would make kind of the content planning side of things a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what most of the users have been saying, just how easy it is for them to be able to get it and run with it and then see results fast, because they're used to writing something and then it taking anywhere from 6 months to a year. And a lot of times a year or 2 years is too long if you're trying to get momentum and decide whether you're going to continue doing this, or you're trying to build some type of side income. You can't wait that long. I mean, that's the big companies can wait forever to do that because they already have that income coming in and they've been doing this forever. But the solo entrepreneur or blogger, they just don't have that type of time.
Yeah, you're
And
exactly right. And you need you kind of need the feedback loop, not only to learn what to do, what to change about your process, but also just to encourage you. I mean, it's a lonely place starting a website, right?
yeah, and the good news is we've seen it in the reviews. So there's a company called G2 that ranks all the software in all the different industries. And right now we are number one for rated for easiest to use, and I think number two overall. And it's interesting. We're outperforming companies like Ahrefs and SEMrush, which are billion-dollar companies, and they're seeing Rank IQ up there, and we've only been out for a year, so we're no huge company. my wife and I are the founders, and we do most of it. And then I've got a small development team, and these different companies are reaching out to us like we're some sort of big mega company. But it's interesting if you can just, whatever your business is, if you can just make it as simple as possible, and focus on a small audience, and deliver for them, because we're not trying to have a tool that's like everyone else for all the different Fortune 5,000 companies, CMOs, SEO experts. We're just focused on bloggers and making it as easy as possible for them, and we're having success because of that. And that goes with any business that you go after. Find your niche that you want to go after and serve that niche better than anyone else, and make the process of using your product, your service, as easy as possible. Because we could have all kind of show our users all these different crazy statistics that we have, but it would make us feel good about ourselves, but it's just going to confuse them.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
simple is the best way for any type of business or service.
Well, what a fantastic hour where you shared so many great tips. Thank you again. Where can people follow along on you? I'll caveat by saying we're going to we'll include a link to Rank IQ so people can go check that out. And then obviously your weekly podcast at the Blogging Millionaire is another spot that people can listen in for a lot of these ongoing tips. Is there anywhere else we should direct people to?
Just focus your time on the podcast, because that's I don't have a course anymore, so my podcast is the course. I don't hold anything back and say, hey, you got to give me your email, and then you get access to something. It's an ongoing course, and just go to Apple Podcast or whatever podcast app that you have, and all you have to do is type Blogging Millionaire, and it'll pop up.
It'll pop up. And you're going to get a lot of requests for people trying to be on your show so they can get a backlink. Thanks today. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast, and it's really been a wonderful hour spent. So thanks for sharing so much great wisdom. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure thing.